Our superintendent search interviews for 2015, and we're going to welcome Mr. Eugene Butler to the table.
Thank you.
And just let you know that we are so glad and proud that you were selected as one of the top 5, and we look forward to your answers in your interview.
Thank you.
Now, I'm going to open up with the first question, which is, please take a few minutes and give us a thumbnail sketch of your professional experiences, your beliefs on the public education, and why you are interested in becoming St. Lucie County's Superintendent of Schools.
Thank you, Dr. Mills. I want to take this opportunity first to thank each and every one of you for giving me the opportunity to interview for this position. Quite often, when you're coming from the outside, all folks have is the documentation in front of them, and they haven't had the chance to see the body of work that you've done. So this is a wonderful opportunity that you took at face value, all the work that I have done and what I bring to the table. So thank you. Secondly, I'm an educator for 24 years. Don't let the baby face fool you. I am extremely excited about this opportunity of joining the family here at St. Lucie County. I've served in the capacity of a teacher, assistant principal, executive director in the Office of Professional Standards, director for middle schools, and assistant superintendent for student support services in various urban school districts. I was with Miami-Dade County Public Schools for 20 years, Broward County for 2, and I've successfully served as well in the Tucson Unified School District in Tucson, Arizona for 3 years. I'm currently, as I stated, the Assistant Superintendent for Student Services. In that capacity, I supervise and have oversight for the largest department in the district. So I have oversight for advanced learning experiences, i.e., looking at your AP classes, IB, advanced honors classes, AVIT. The other extreme, exceptional education. I have oversight for the exceptional education department, school choice, health services, open enrollment, pretty much runs the gamut. I have the largest department in the district, as I indicated. That's basically it in a nutshell.
And if you would conclude that with why you're interested in becoming superintendent here for St. Lucie County.
I apologize. After thoroughly looking at the needs of the district and based upon the responsibilities and duties that you're looking for, I think it would be a happy marriage between what I bring to the table. I've increased graduation rates, student achievement, student performance, and those are all areas that I see the positive trajectory moving in the right direction here. I think that based upon my body of work, I would be able to assist and work collaboratively with the board, internal and external stakeholders in improving some of those areas. I know, for example, the graduation rate in St. Lucie County is 73.1%. For the state, it's 76.3%, I believe it is, and nationally it's 80%. So I have a history of improving graduation rates in other districts and at other schools. When it comes to student achievement, I've been fortunate enough in my capacity as a director for middle schools that 12 of the 14 schools that were assigned to me improved their letter grade within 2 years. And that takes into consideration the majority of those schools were C or D rated schools and parentally underachieving schools. So within 2 years to make those kinds of improvements, working in conjunction with the school sites and the parents, I think that I can bring some of those same skills here to St. Lucie. And as I've had a chance to take a look at the data, my area of expertise meets the needs of this district.
Very much. Thank you very much. The floor is now open to the board members for questions.
Speaking about achievement gap, with St. Lucie County, what would you do to close the achievement gap? Strategies involved?
That's an excellent question. I think the target area would probably have to be reading. If we look elementary, middle, and high school. Our reading scores probably is where we would probably want to put the greatest emphasis. So looking at things like Fluency Fridays at a couple of my schools as a principal, and then I also implemented this with Fidelity at the middle schools when I was the director for middle schools in TUSD. The social studies teachers partnered with the language arts or English teachers if they're high school or middle school, and they work collaboratively together to plan. So the social studies teachers on Fridays actually became reading teachers as well. And that goes in line with the Florida standards or Common Core standards in the sense of social studies teachers no longer standalone. They are reading teachers. So one of the initiatives I think we could take a look at, and it's always a little premature to say what you will do before you even in an environment, because you have to talk collaboratively with the stakeholders to get feedback on best practices that are already working before we start throwing things out and saying this is not functional. So looking at an internal curriculum audit, not necessarily bringing anyone from the outside, but what best practices are actually working. Looking at 3 years of trend data. I'm a stickler for data. I don't make very many decisions without having data in front of me. So perhaps looking at 3 years of trend data, and that's been my experience in the past, and looking at trajectory. What's working, what's not working, looking at measurable gains. As far as reading goes, looking at the basal that's being used, looking at the iterations of our reading plan and seeing if we need to revisit our reading plan or best practices that we've implemented district-wide to improve our reading. I had the opportunity to take a look at the superintendent's goals as well as the strategic plan goals, and I saw writing, I saw MTSS. I think perhaps we could place a greater emphasis on reading practices, not so much reading programs. Today, and I've been an educator for 24 years, I have never seen a reading program teach a child yet. I have seen skilled instructional leaders, highly qualified teachers, use programs as an instrument to be able to assist in learning. So perhaps we need to revisit our PD, our professional development, in the sense of how we're rolling out our curriculum, and looking nationally at what best practices are working with similar demographics. It doesn't make any sense to roll out best practices if they don't meet the same needs of the students in our district. So those are a couple of things that I would do.
Following up with that, and I know you worked with diverse groups in Miami, how could you improve the academic performance of African American males, the subgroup that has been traditionally the lowest academic performance in our district? That's
an excellent question. In my current district, I supervise the 4 equity directors in the district, and it's a universal problem across the nation that we're addressing. But one of the areas that we've streamlined to target is improving test scores, attendance, and disparities in suspensions for African American male students. So we've implemented the MTSS model, multi-tiered support system model, and every week the students that are showing some deficiencies in that area, they're brought to that team, their names are brought to that team meeting, identifying them as students that might be in need of interventions, specific interventions, not just generic interventions, but specific interventions have been identified for those students. It may be Saturday Academy, tutoring on Saturdays. It may be after school or before school tutorial services. It may be providing them with a mentor. We have a partnership in my current district with the local university and the African American Engineering Association. They tutor some of our kids on Saturdays in mathematics to address especially the disparity in STEM opportunities. So those are some of the things that we could implement. Building relationships and partnerships with our local faith-based groups, with our local nonprofit organizations for incentives to be used for the PBIS model. If anyone that's been in education long enough, they will be able to tell you that students actually do respond to incentives. And one of the things that I think we could look at is identifying the types of incentives that certain population students might be interested in, going out, getting those incentives, but it has to be a reward system. What is our return on investment? So when we're implementing these types of programs, the PBIS model, and I know it's strong here, I'm a major advocate of PBIS. At 2 of my schools, I implemented, when I was a principal, implemented PBIS for the first time at those schools, and then in TUSD, I supervise the directors who are over the PBIS model. And if we can get kids to understand and buy into why it's important to be successful citizens, I think that's a start. One other thing I think, and this is universal, it's not just for African American students, but we also offer out there culturally relevant courses. It's a pilot this year, but I think that a culturally responsive pedagogy needs to be addressed in the sense of professional development for teachers. An example I'll give to you is that, and I'll use an example from Miami-Dade County Public Schools since you referenced it. I did work there at the time. Miami-Dade County Public Schools has a substantial Haitian American population. And I can recall on more than one occasion where teachers would say, the student is being disrespectful, they won't look at me in my eyes. Well, that tells me right off the back that we're missing that culture responsive pedagogy piece, because in that student's culture, since they were here, they were taught that you don't look adults in the eyes because that's disrespectful. So we probably have to revisit things like professional development for our teachers to make sure that they understand the importance of being sensitive to different cultures, sensitive to different ideologies, and having very high expectations for all students.
I have a follow-up question to that. Our district is very diverse. We have people of many colors here, and many different languages are spoken. And 7 out of 10 of our students live in poverty. What have been your experience with these diverse populations? That's the first question. And the second one is, how would you get to know all of the diverse stakeholders within the community?
Okay. After working in Miami-Dade County Public Schools at some of the most challenging schools in the district, I would say some of the communities, but very challenging, underprivileged, low socioeconomic skill communities. As a principal, and being fairly successful in those environments, I'm very comfortable in answering this question. I'll give you a perfect example. One of the middle schools that I was tasked with being the principal of and turning the school around, we improved 40 points on the FCAT in 1 year. And that was one of the middle schools in Dade County. Very diverse school, very challenging school, but raising the expectations, and I know it sounds very simple when I say raising the expectations, but it goes back to training, that professional development for the teachers, having the same high standards for all of our students, ensuring that there are enrichment opportunities for our students, not just remediation. I think too often we get caught up in the lowest 25%, lowest 30%. What are the enrichment opportunities that we're providing for all of our students? So going out into the community, and at this particular school, we received the Community Beautification Award, and it was a school that, and that came from the mayor's office, the mayor of Miami Gardens. It was a school that had been neglected from the physical standpoint as well as an academic standpoint. And just working with the staff and getting them to understand and buy in to the fact that the students at this school are entitled to a quality and equitable education, just like all the other students in our district, and providing obviously the PD, because you can't just say the words and give lip service, providing the professional development and the resources necessary, researching some of the programs that would be successfully implemented with fidelity to ensure success for our diverse populations. We were able to experience measurable gains. Going out into community, faith-based groups, United Way, those types of organizations, and getting them actively involved, mentorship programs, bringing in, over the years I've brought in Arnold Schwarzenegger at one school to speak with the kids, Jackie Joyner-Kersee, basketball player at the Heat. Quite a few folks. I'm sorry. No, not Dwayne Wade. Josh, what's his name? Oh, God, I'm sorry. But bring in speakers from the community and getting them to understand that this is an incentive. The only way we're going to bring these folks in is for this next marking period. I need to see X, Y, and Z. Making sure that our students are participating in various competitions and contests, both local, statewide, and nationally. I've had African American male be the first place winner in the nation in the Shakespearean monologue competition. So giving all of our students an opportunity to be successful, regardless to what their ethnicity may be. And I might have missed the second part.
How would you get to know all of the diverse stakeholders within our community?
Yeah. Being engaged in the community is the only way that you can get to know all of your stakeholders. They're not going to come to you. You have to get out into the community. You can't sit in your office. You have to get out there and be involved and be engaged. I speak at Kiwanis Club meetings. I would do the same kinds of things. I've served in numerous times as a keynote speaker. Most recently, about 2 weeks ago, I was the keynote speaker at the State of Black Arizona's STEM dinner. So just being out in the community, being engaged, making sure that central office personnel is being in the community and being engaged, fostering relationships that are already in place. This district has done a wonderful job with creating partnerships like with the Boys and Girls Club, for example. Just fostering those kinds of relationships is how I would go about that.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
The floor is open.
Can I do a follow-up?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Okay, just have you used Ruby Payne or Bridges Out of Poverty, or what type of training do you do for the boots on the ground, which are our teachers, the people working every day, day in and day out with the students in order to foster that trust? Right.
Most of our training deals with it's been focused on SAIL, S-A-I-L, SAIL training, which is on cultural sensitivity. Everyone in the entire district has been SAIL trained, from the superintendent on down to the classroom teachers. One of the things that we're doing now, actually, we're the second iteration of training. The LSCs, were the learning support coordinators. There are 90 of them. They were just recently retrained again. Most importantly, I think the best practice when it comes to trying to modify behavior, making sure that we don't escalate issues, is probably restorative practices. And restorative practices, everyone in our district has been trained in restorative practices, and not to say that you have to bring in something new, but it might be worthwhile for us to take a look at the restorative practices, because it's very good about de-escalating issues, and it's non-instructional staff as well as instructional staff when you're engaging students to make sure that the students feel and hopefully understand that you do have their best interests at heart, that you're being culturally sensitive, that you understand the social capital that they bring to the table and it's respected, that their culture and the students' beliefs are embraced opposed to tolerated, two different sides of the scale. And sometimes I think some folks get that a little confused, but we don't tolerate folks. We embrace cultures and have high expectations for all, and do appreciate the social capital that they bring to the table.
Okay. This is tricky.
Uh-oh.
Okay. Based on your knowledge of St. Lucie County, what expectations of yours would be non-negotiable, first part, Second part, what elements would you enable your school leaders to interpret to meet their unique needs and circumstances?
Okay.
So you want me to read the first part again?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Based on your knowledge of St. Lucie County, what expectations of yours would be non-negotiable?
I believe in equity and voice, so it's always good to hear from everyone that sits at the table. One of the non-negotiables for me, obviously, would be to develop a rich partnership and relationship and rapport with the board. It's imperative that the board and the superintendent be on the same page, or else it's going to be a long 3 years. I'm an eternal optimist. I'm a true glass kind of full guy. And so with that said, so that would be the first step, trying to make sure that, for me, a non-negotiable is that one way or another, I would have to find a way to make sure that a relationship is built, a relationship of trust is built with each and every one of the board members, and hopefully it would be reciprocated. It's also equally important for me that student achievement be at the forefront. And when I look at, and I referenced it at the very beginning of the interview, I referenced that our graduation rate is 73.1%, and the state being 76.3, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and then nationally it's 80%. A non-negotiable for me is that we cannot go backwards, that we have to be on a positive trajectory, and that hopefully within the next 3 years we'll exceed the state average as far as our graduation rate. Graduation rates are a lot more reliable than dropout rates. I speak about this all the time. I have to speak to task force because my current district is under the unitary status plan as far as a court order. So I wind up having a lot of these kinds of conversations, and a lot of external stakeholders quite often bring up dropout rates. And all the research shows that four-year cohort data for graduation rates is much more reliable, and that's where the focus should be. So when I look at our four-year cohort graduation data, I think a non-negotiable for me would be that in 3 years we should surpass the state average as far as our graduation rate. Our reading scores, I don't know if I want to put a measurable percentage on it, but and it depends on what level. Elementary is a little better than middle a little better than senior, but our reading percentages of passing is a non-negotiable that, again, has to be moving in a positive trajectory that we really need to revisit. The math scores are not exactly where I think they could be, but math is kind of holding its own. It's reading, and it's not unique to St. Lucie. It's statewide and nationally, in my district as well, where we need to place a greater emphasis on reading, and how do we find a way to get kids to start loving reading, and that's having read-ins, going to where the students are. I can tell you as a former principal, I've held PTA meetings with readings at football games. I know that Little League football games, middle school age kids, I know that if our parents don't come to us, sometimes we have to go to them. If that means going to a faith-based organization and having a PTA meeting there, then that's what it means. If it means going to Little League football games and having a meeting there, but we have to go to where our parents are. We jokingly say parents don't keep the best kids home and send the other ones to us. Parents send us what they have, and they expect us, and we have a responsibility to make sure that each and every one of those students receives a quality and equitable education. And I take that very seriously in the sense of it doesn't matter what the gender or the ethnicity of our students are. Each and every one of them is entitled to the same quality education.
Good. The second part is, what elements would you enable your school leaders to interpret to meet their unique needs and circumstances?
Okay. I every time I've gone into a new environment, my first staff meeting has always sounded something like this. It is my job to train you to take my job, but I'm not going to give it to you. You're going to have to work hard for it. But I'm going to do everything within my power to make sure that you're qualified to take my job. And so that's the way I look at the question that you just posed to me, in the sense of you have to build capacity. You don't want to be the one with all the answers, because sometimes your answers might be wrong. But you don't want to be the one with all the answers, because 10 years from now, 5 years from now, 3 years from now, if the board decides to go in a different direction, you don't want that historical knowledge walking out of the building with that individual. You have to build capacity amongst all of the stakeholders that are at the table. So the way I interpret that question, and my response simply is, you make sure that you train your staff with the most recent research-based best practices. You make sure that there is equity and voice amongst your entire team. You make sure that parents feel comfortable in coming to our schools and coming to the central office and saying, I need your help, and who can help me? And everybody around that table is saying, I'm capable of helping you. I'll get you in contact with the right person, but I'm capable of helping you as well.
What, and this is the key word here, what internal communication plan do you see as necessary, not only to ensure a school district moves forward with fresh and innovative ideas, but also to ensure employees have a satisfying work environment?
I know that the current superintendent has a newsletter. I would continue to build on that newsletter. Social media is probably, and not just for external, I know you said internal, but I think social media also is a great opportunity for any leader in any organization to keep staff abreast of what's going on, and make sure that staff is on par with what's going on, because you can get some immediate feedback. The sooner you get the feedback, the sooner you can make adjustments if you need to. I've always had a newsletter. I would do Friday reports. My expectation would be that the internal cabinet would provide Friday reports, so I'm kept abreast of everything that's going on from week to week. We may need to make some adjustments. And when I say Friday reports, it's as simple as, Monday, the date, what transpired. Tuesday, the date, what transpired, who you met with, what type of proposals are in play, and then same thing would be coming from me in a sense of establishing Friday reports. So I think that would probably be the best way to keep everybody in the loop.
Please do.
Okay. Just to follow up.
No problem.
Could you describe meaningful employee recognition?
No, that's an excellent question. To ensure that the morale in any organization, and specifically in St. Lucie County, is upbeat, and that we retain, if I'm not mistaken, I think I saw a goal, our goal was to retain 85% of the teachers in our district. I think that was in our strategic plan or the superintendent's goal. You have to have happy employees. And I don't mean happy in the sense of, and no one expects to ever become rich when they come into the field of education. Everything that we do is intrinsic. It's about when those students graduate from high school, or if they transition from elementary to middle and they come back and they tell the teacher, you were instrumental in my success. The kids that go off to college, come back, same thing. I think that we need to make sure that we're on recognizing Teacher of the Year, Staff Member of the Year, but not just simply waiting the entire year. For example, one of the things that we do in our current district is in the superintendent's report. I provide every month, every board meeting to the superintendent the schools that have had that made the greatest attendance improvement each month, and that's at each level. So we have a flag, and I wish I had put some pictures for you or something. But we have 4 flags actually, same model, but we have flags say TUSD, first place winner in the district, elementary school. TUSD, first place winner in the district, middle school, K through 8, high school. Those flags fly proudly each month at a different school. The school that has the best attendance, and it's created a high level of competition, and we monitor it, and that's first place, and we recognize second and third place, receive a certificate as well, but you would be surprised. The principals that will call me, or the next day after the board meeting when the superintendent recognizes them, that particular school, and they'll tell me, Mr. Butler, I was third, right? But I was only one tenth off. So next board meeting, you know that we're going to get the flash. Well, you got to prove it to me. You can't just tell me something. I need to see it. But so it has created very, very positive competition amongst the principals, amongst the students, and it's also a way to improve our attendance. But it just creates that opportunity to be able to recognize our schools for doing something a lot of times we overlook. We don't look at our schools quite often anymore from a holistic standpoint, and that's really sad that everything is a state assessment test. What did you get on the FCAT in the past, and then whatever our new assessments will be. But we have to look at schools from a holistic standpoint. Teachers that are getting nationally board certified need to be recognized. Teachers that teachers, students, staff that receive various awards and accolades need to be recognized. I did that I'm doing it, and I've done that as a principal as well, in the sense of I didn't care whether a student won a Boy Scout award. I put it in my press releases and sent it out, and we sent it out in mass production to the local media, to the former district that I was in, the local newspaper there. On Sundays, they would print positive information in reference to students winning awards and accolades, teachers winning awards and accolades. And I think the more we keep folks abreast of the positive things that are going on, we start to change the perception about the district, about the community, because they're wonderful. There's not a school in this district where there isn't something positive that's happening. But we have to we have to work just as hard as the media does at putting out their message. We have to work just as diligently about putting out our message to change the perception where folks say, I didn't know all that was going on in St. Lucie. I didn't know all that. Wow, nobody told me all that was going on. Changing those perceptions also get other folks to start doing our work for us, where they go out in the community and start saying, did you know? Did you know this is happening over there in St. Lucie County? Did you know this is happening? And it creates a situation where we don't have to toot our own horns. So people will start tooting our horns for us. And that's the way I look at answering that question.
I have a follow-up question
Yes,
also
ma'am.
in this area. What methods would you enact for employees to provide input?
Okay. One of the first things you can always do is a needs assessment. Right now, we're in my former district, we're in the process, and then I supervise that department. We're in the process of rolling out family engagement centers. So we have 2 family engagement centers that are opening up, one at the end of this month and one at one of the senior high schools. And so what I have shared is we need to do needs assessments, which we've done. We've gotten feedback from the community in the sense of the types of topics that they would like to see us discuss, the type of presenters that they would like us to bring in. We have a lot of the answers, but we don't have all of the answers. So including our stakeholders, our external stakeholders is also very, very helpful in that process. But specifically here, I would say that it would be incumbent upon us to maybe provide surveys and get some feedback from instructional as well as non-instructional staff. Also parents, and you hear me say parents a lot. I'm one of those, yes. Back in 2010 or 2011, I was selected as the PTA Principal of the Year in Miami, so I'm extremely involved in the community. I don't think that, I know that parents are the lifeblood of our schools, and in order for us to make sure that our students are successful, we have to get parents and guardians involved in the school. So we also need to make sure that we're seeking and soliciting feedback from them in the sense of what we can do a little differently, what we can do a little better, and that'll make the entire district better.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Questions, board?
This is actually concludes the official questions.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's not going to stop, as you know. Okay.
No problem.
You already figured us out.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. But is there anything that you would like for us to know, any statement you'd like to make, or anything that you would like to present to us that we would not have had the privilege of finding out through what you've given to us in documentation and our other conversations?
I think I'm very transparent. I think I don't know how you sum up a person's career in a few pages, but I think between my cover letter, the resume, the supporting documentation that I've provided, the references from the mayor of Tucson through my current superintendent to colleagues, the superintendent in another district not too far from here, I think my body of work speaks for itself. I am by far probably one of the most honest people that you're going to meet, and that gets me in trouble sometimes because I call it like I see it, and so I'm working on the filter. And I don't know if that's a plus or a negative, but it is what it is. I will answer this by saying this. One of the students who I was extremely impressed with today asked me what was my strength and what was my weakness. Great question, and great question from a student. And I responded by saying, I think that it's the same thing. It's my passion. I'm extremely passionate. I'm extremely involved and engaged, and that passion can lead to some great things when you're working with good people. The other side of that coin is that passion sometimes makes you a little impatient, and you go, I got my 3 years of trend data. Guys, let's move forward. I think it's pretty clear in the sense of what decision or decisions we might want to make, and then it doesn't come to fruition, and that passion says, but it's all here. So I would respond to your question by saying, and maybe I should have kept that one in my back pocket, but I'll respond by saying that my strength and my weakness are probably the same, and that's being passionate.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, we do have at least a whole half an hour that we could be asking questions, so I'm going to start out with another question for you. What is your strategic plan to raise school grades and the graduation rate?
That's a good question. One of the things, and you learn how to do things one way or the other by being around folks and watching them and engaging them. And one of the things I was very impressed with, and I've had lots of superintendents, my current superintendent, rather than coming in and saying this is the strategic plan, it was a community collaborative effort. And I'll be honest with you, I'd never seen it done that way before. The community, business leaders, educators, the board met consecutively on Saturdays to develop the strategic plan and what they would like to see in the strategic plan. Now, obviously, you bring to the table some ideas, but just to get that feedback from all of the stakeholders in a sense of, are we going to focus on diversity? Are we going to focus on communications, facilities, whatever it may be, rather than one person walking into the district and saying, here's the plan. And when I saw that approach almost 2 years ago, when I saw that approach, the first thing I said is, if someone ever hands me the keys to a district, That's the way to do it. You don't walk in and say, I have all the answers, because I don't have all the answers. You don't walk into a district where you didn't grow up through the system in that district and say you have all of the answers. And to be honest with you, even if you did, I don't know if that's wise. It probably still would be prudent to solicit feedback from other folks and see, as a district, what are some of the priorities that we'd like to take a look at. Personally, you've already heard me say graduation rate is one of the areas that I would like to address from a strategic and intentional perspective. Addressing the graduation rate doesn't necessarily start at high school. I mean, implementing additional dropout prevention initiatives, from maybe looking at dropout prevention specialists, looking at implementing certain programs, which I don't want to say any particular program and put the spotlight on a particular program and endorse them. But looking at a particular program that has a history of success within our same demographics. But that's something you bring to the table and you provide the data and show, yes, this is research-based rather than this is Gene Butler-based. So those are a couple of the things I think as far as approach goes. It's not one person riding in on a white horse to save the day, and this is the plan.
I must tell you, I like data.
Yes, ma'am.
It's a good thing. Okay, questions, board?
I'll ask you the same question I asked the other candidate. To be fair, and you have Florida experience, what is your opinion as far as St. Lucie County? We have appointed superintendents. In some counties, there are elected superintendents. What is your opinion on the way it's done in St. Lucie?
Well, you're really putting me on the spot, huh? And I'm going to be very candid. I honestly do believe that the superintendent should be appointed by the board and hired by the board. When you run for the superintendency, there are no real qualifications that you must bring to the table as an educator, for example. And I'm not saying that, I know districts around the country have experimented with numerous things, from bringing in generals to admirals and private industry folks, and if they're capable of surrounding themselves with the right people, and I haven't seen it work yet, but someone keeps telling me it's going to work because somebody keeps doing it. And so around the country, there's always, every year, there's somebody that does it and thinks it's going to work. You need an instructional leader to lead a school system. Depending on what they bring to the table, what their body of work is, it's going to run the gamut. But I personally believe that the superintendent of schools should be appointed by the school board and hired by the school board, approved by the school board, and if he or she is not getting the job done, dismissed by the school board. That is the appropriate way to make sure that there's true accountability. If you are running for office as a superintendent and you expect to hit the ground running on educational issues, unless you really have surrounded yourself again with the right folks to be able to say, well, this initiative means this, and that, I find it very hard for you to be extremely successful. I'm not saying that people can't be, but I find it difficult, and it's probably more of a learning curve. There's probably more of a learning curve, and it will take a little longer to be able to accomplish some of the goals that the board would establish as a need.
I want to ask you a question about early learning education, meaning the age before the students get to our school, or traditionally, that is. We do have early learning classes and programs within our district, but I want to ask your opinion on that, reaching that child before the age of 5, the traditional way.
Absolutely.
Or before the age of 4. How do you feel about early learning?
Dr. Mills, that's an excellent question. We recently opened, this year in July, we opened 2 early learning centers in my current district, and the expectation was if we could get up to, at each site, if we can get to about 50 or 60 school students for this initial year, we're above 100 students at each of those centers. All the research shows, and I recently engaged in a comparative analysis between Finland and the United States, and I interviewed Pasi Salberg, who is I want to make sure I get his name right, is the world-renowned expert on Finland. And as you know, Finland is a very high-performing country, especially in science and mathematics. And so for this comparative analysis, I wanted to pick his brain. So I sought him out, and he's actually he's at Harvard now. So I was able to track him down. And he emphasized the importance, and we see it every single day in the research, just the importance from cradle to college as far as education goes. The earlier we can get our students on the track of learning, the earlier we can start our students with understanding critical thinking skills, the better they're going to be by the time they're in middle school. So then we can start providing more advanced learning opportunities at earlier ages to our students as well. And if you look at Finland, South Korea, Japan, Singapore. These are countries that not only understand, but have taken the initiative to educate their students earlier and earlier, and to provide higher learning experiences at a younger age. And then also what's taken place in Harlem with their cradle to college experience, with the percentage of students that are college and career ready by the time they're seniors. It's been unbelievable what they're doing there. So I fully support early learning centers. I think that probably the biggest barrier has to do with some parents saying, oh, they're too young. And they're never too young for us to start making sure that they receive good quality instruction that can be used as an underpinning or a solid foundation as they transition from elementary to middle, and then matriculate from middle to high school, and then off to college.
Any more questions around?
Yeah, I have one. This may come as a surprise to you, but our expectations for our new superintendent are really very, very minimal. We expect you to perform 25 hours a day, 8 days a week. Given that,
That was a
what
joke.
do you do for balance in your life?
I'm working on it.
So share some words of wisdom as to how you...
Actually, I'm working on it. It's funny you say that, because my current soup shared with me that he rides a treadmill and he works out, and we actually had a very similar conversation to what I do for balance not too long. And I said, well, I'm finishing up my doctorate, and he's like, Gene, come on. I mean, really. And I really did not have an answer, to be honest with you. I do love to read. I don't want to plug anybody's book, but I'm reading a really good book on leadership in reference to the 21 indispensable leadership qualities, and it's good stuff. And I'm seeing what I do currently, and then I'm seeing some things I need to revisit with myself to make some adjustments. If you ever get to the point where you know everything, or you feel you know everything, or you've learned everything that's humanly possible to learn, it's time to step aside and let somebody else do the job. So I do enjoy reading, and most of the reading is related to education or to organizations, systems. But I really don't have a solid answer to give to you about balance. I just try to enjoy kids. I do, well, I guess it's balanced. I do go to the events, sporting events, athletic events, science competitions, you name it, I'm there. The only problem that I have is I have not mastered cloning yet. So, as you guys can relate to, you can only be in one place at a time, and you get all these invites, or not even just get invites. You keep abreast of what's going on in the community, and you'd love to be at as many of those events and functions as possible, but you can only be at one place at one time. So I do try to stay in tune by, going to functions, events, jazz competitions, oratory competitions, those types of things. But personally, I'm working on it.
Appreciate your honesty.
You're welcome.
We're all a work in progress, I'm sure. Okay.
Madam Chair, this isn't a question so much as a pledge.
Yes.
Okay. When we bring someone to us, make a part of our family, it is our job to make sure that you understand that we are a real team. We expect to hear things that we need to know that we may not like, and you will expect to hear things from us that we think you need to know that you may not like.
Absolutely.
And we run interference in the community wherever need be to make sure that when you get started, that you know where the minefields are, and we make that as smooth as possible. Make sure you're introduced to everybody in this community you need to know. We have a fabulous community that's extremely supportive, but it is our job to make sure that we help liaise that peace between you and whomever in the community. And we are dynamic, as you probably figured out.
I have.
Pretty focused, often very assertive, usually on the bleeding edge of things. But our pledge is to make sure that we are a team and that we support each other and that we make sure that you have the most comfortable transition as possible.
I really appreciate that. And I know you say it wasn't a question, but I will say that if I'm afforded this opportunity to join the St. Lucie family, I will tell you that anyone that you speak to that knows me, I have the same level of commitment. I'm engaged. I'm active. I'm involved. I try to make sure that my current superintendent, I'll shoot him a text. A perfect example is last Sunday, we had a couple of young men who were skateboarding and doing stunts at one of the high schools that was locked up and chained, and somehow they made their way in there. And so up the ramps, they're doing all the stunts and the tricks and all that stuff. And one of the students was injured. He fell and he hurt his head. And so I'm over school safety. I have oversight for school safety as well. So I get the Saturday and Sunday calls anytime anything goes on. And so the director for school safety contacted me, and as I always do in true fashion, I immediately notified the deputy superintendent as well as the director for communications and the superintendent of schools. Very seldomly does anything transpire in our district, even if it's something as simple as the school's on lockdown. And it might be a soft lockdown, but the superintendent needs to know that we're on a soft lockdown. There's nothing worse than the superintendent, and in this case, nothing worse than the board being surprised. And it's my job and my pledge to make sure that to the best of my ability, I stay in the loop and I keep you in the loop.
Good. I like that.
I think you had an interesting question last time, Mr. Ingersoll, about the life, about what type of life, just, you would phrase that.
Sure.
Children, that type of thing.
Not children. I was curious about your family growing up and what, how it's going.
Absolutely. About me personally, my family growing up, or
Sure.
All right.
Just
Whatever you want.
Whatever you like to share.
okay. Originally born and raised in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Went to high school in Wilmington, Delaware. First 2 years of college in Mississippi. Went back to Delaware and graduated. Got my BA there, but wound up in Miami with my ex-wife. we're in college together, same track team, a lot of pounds ago. For me anyway, for her, she's still fit. For me, a lot of pounds ago. But we were on the same track team, and so I wound up moving to Miami. I have twin sons that are 23 years old, and so that makes me an empty nester. I have twin sons, so I have two sons that are blood. And if I join this district, I will have 40,000 other students that are my children as well.
Good answer. Okay, anyone else have any questions around the table? You mentioned our parents. Okay.
Yes.
What have you done in your prior school or district leadership experience to promote parent involvement in meaningful ways? And develop parent leadership even?
Currently, in my capacity as the Assistant Superintendent for Student Services, I sit on a couple of task force, one African American task force. I meet along with the superintendent, the assistant superintendent for secondary school leadership, and the assistant superintendent for elementary school leadership. We meet on a monthly basis with the Native American Advisory Council. We meet with the MAS, Mexican American parents. Personally, I am in the community on a regular basis. Like I've served as the keynote speaker back in November, I think it was, at the Parent University, which was held at one of the local community colleges. I speak at Chamber, Kiwanis. We already had a partnership with a faith-based group, but I think we've really strengthened it over the last year to the point where this year I asked for Christmas or winter recess, I asked us if we could do something a little different. So in light of our safety officers and law enforcement nationally not being held in the highest esteem, one of the things I thought would be a really good idea was not just the Student Services Department to go out and deliver Christmas baskets or winter baskets. We also got the school safety involved, and I told them I want them in uniform. And they went out and delivered food to homes and over the break, and parents were just absolutely excited. And that was my initiative. Personally, like I said, I'm in the community all the time. I've spoken at several venues. I've been asked to speak. As a matter of fact, the best answer I can just give to you to that question is that the rapper KRS-One, who's kind of old school now, but he's making a lot of money touring, and he speaks at Harvard and Princeton and other Ivy League schools. So he's done something right over the last 20-something years. However, he was at one of our high schools recently. But I was supposed to be the speaker. And I pulled up at the school and turned in the parking lot. As soon as I turned in the parking lot, I got a phone call from my administrative assistant and the gentleman who's the director for African American Student Services. And he said, "Mr. Butt, where are you?" And I said, "I'm pulling up at school so-and-so." He said, "I was trying to catch you. You know this guy, KRS-One or something?" And I said, "Yeah, I think I have his first, I still have a tape. A cassette. I'm gonna date myself." "Yeah, what about him?" He said, "He's there and he's speaking, and you've been bumped." So that didn't go over too well with me, but it was one of those spontaneous things where he actually was in town for a concert the night before, and we offer culturally relevant courses in our district, and the teacher invited him, and he accepted, and I got bumped. But those are the kind of things I do. I go out to the schools and I speak to the students about career setting, goal setting, being prepared for the real world. I call it real talk. That's my little spiel. Being prepared for the real world, and that's for all students of all ethnicities, because quite often you hear our students that are having the most challenges in this day and age, all of our students are having the most challenges. No one should be left out. And that's from our students that need remedial support to our students that need enrichment opportunities. Regardless of whether they're taking advanced placement class, they need support. IB class, they need support. Or they're struggling readers, and they may be in high school and be pre-primer readers. They need support. And that's where we collectively come in, because we're all interconnected.
As well as our children with disabilities.
Absolutely.
We thank you so much. Your interview has been excellent, and you've had us captivated,
Thank you.
and we appreciate it. Any other last remarks for any of the board members?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Butler.